我觉得言论自由的话，国内也是有的，但是是受一定，就是自由是在一定可控范围里面的，包括西方国家也是的，他们不可能是属于完全自由，但是是受一定，就是自由是在一定可控。
算是比较高的一个分数，因为它这个一开始的上限分是860分，后来又扩展了。
In early 2009, the Chinese government started weaving a trap in silence. No headlines, no whispers, nothing until 2014 when it finally surfaced. From that moment on, the plan was set in motion. Slowly, carefully, relentlessly. You or I care, and you're right. China's far. But here's the truth. What they built there is already on its way to your doorstep. Not in decade, but in the years ahead. And this is just the beginning. The social credit system started as an experiment in 2009 and was then officially launched in 2014. The social credit system is designed to reinforce honesty and safety within Chinese society. It's used to reward individuals and companies who follow ideal behavior. And it's also used to punish people or companies who get caught doing bad deeds or crimes. Yes, criminals. Of course, this is all part of the Chinese government's promotion of the social credit system. But the deeper you dig, the clearer it becomes. The system serves the government, not the people. And now, you will understand when I explain the system in detail. In this chapter, I'll break down the system thoroughly. The cred system is not the same as the cred score used by banks. That one only tracks loan payments. The social credit system is very different from the rating systems in movies. In films, people rate each other. But here, the government does the judging. This is how it works. Every person starts with 1,000 social point status, are then added or deducted based on your actions. Your words, your search history, who you hang out with, your mood, complaints, children. You have literally anything. Violations are tracked in two ways. The first way, cameras placed everywhere across China. Literally everywhere, estimated at 626 million cameras in 2022. To give you perspective, that's 17.5 times the population of Saudi Arabia. And all these cameras have facial recognition. They can tell who you are, your age, your family, and your location. The color, model, everything about you, just by stepping into view. The second way, informants. Yes, every government uses informants undercover because of their reputation, skills, and shady behavior. Informants are often called rats. But in China, informants are government workers, openly observing, and if it's none of their business. Now here's a critical point. If you speak against the government, aside from points, you can vanish forever. So what actions make you gain or lose points? Spending more than your credit allows, you will lose 10 points. Returning found money to the government earns you 10 points. Posting negative content about the government costs 50 points. If you post incorrect information in groups, you will lose 30 points. If you report any person who violates the law, you will get 10 points. If you do not allow informants to gather evidence about you, you will lose 20 points. Dodging taxes? Minus 100 points. If you receive a speeding fine between 500 and 2,000 Chinese yuan. This is something that is very likely to happen because if you go a little over the legal speed limit, you will be caught because there are 626 million camera throughout all of China. You will lose 10 points. If you get 2 fines for parking your car in a no parking area, you will lose 10 points. If you set off fireworks without a government permit, you will lose 5 points. If you study people, you will lose 50 points. That is, if you are a professor and give private lessons to earn money, you will lose 50 points. How think police catch a criminal? As a rat? You will win 20 points. Don't get me wrong, catching criminals is a good thing, but a criminal in China could be an ordinary person who objected to something the government did wrong. Breaking the child policy, more than 2 kids, or hiding from the government, minus 40 points. Donating an organ voluntarily, earn 100 points. Winning a national award, gain 100 points. If you build a tomb larger than the legal size, you will lose 100 points. If your son joins the army, you will get 5 points. And these laws, believe me, they don't stop there. And the social credit system has 5 levels. I will explain them to you, in detail, and every person gains advantages or has penalties imposed on them, depending on the stage they are in. These stages are as follows. First stage, which is AAA, the highest stage, and you enter it when you have more than 1050 points. In this stage, of course, you get priority in everything, from hospital appointments or jobs. Literally, you are a priority over everyone else. And this stage is divided into 2 types. One type is where you have AAA, and one type is where you have AA. The difference between them is nothing, but when you are AAA, you will be better than A, which is A+, AA. By this, you will be viewed better by society. Second stage, which is A+, AA-, and this stage is when you have from 960 points to 1029 points. If you are in this stage, then the government takes you as a model of the good citizen in order to put you up as a promotional front and use you as propaganda. And you also get priority in enrolling your children in schools or entering hospitals. Third stage, which is the B, and you must have between 850 and 959 points. When you enter this stage, you will be forced to remain in it for 2 years, which means you won't be able to move up to the next stage except after 2 years. In this stage, informants will start visiting you and tell you how you can improve your situation, of course, by being a citizen who is a slave to the government. Fourth stage, which is the stage C, and you must have between 600 and 849 points. And if you enter this stage, you will be locked in it for 3 years before you can move to the next stage. And informants will visit you more regularly, and they will be able to monitor your movements completely, more than other people. The 5th, final, and worst stage, which is D. If you enter this stage, you will be locked in it from 599 points for a period of 5 years, and here informants will come to you a lot, at any time they want. And they can cancel any official document you are registered on. You will be fired from your job, and your turn at hospitals will be delayed to the last of people. That's if you even get a turn. You won't be able to board trains or planes. You won't be able to buy food from street vending machines. You won't be able to register on many websites, or even play video games. You won't be able to leave the area of your city. And if you have an educational certificate of any kind, it will be erased, and you will be prevented from taking loans, and your name will be registered on the blacklist. Then your name, your place of residence, your age, and a lot of information about you will be displayed to all of China, so that they are warned about you, and so that they consider you a failure and without any value. Imagine your personal information being displayed in a bad light in front of millions of people, among whom there will be mentally disturbed people. Certainly some will seize the opportunity that the government hates you and that you have no value to them. So you will become a target for bullying or blackmail or anything else, given that all your personal information is public. So you currently will tell me, meaning your situation will be excellent if you don't go below the 600 points. I will tell you no, because even if you go below 1,000 points, you can no longer buy high-end products. And this means that anything expensive, you can't get it, like flight tickets, for example. Many things you will be prevented from as soon as you drop below 1,000 points, and in a moment, you will know why. And this system originally is opening a new door for racism. People who have higher points will see people whose rating is lower than them as walking filth. You might think this is the worst of it, and that there won't be anything worse than this. But again, unfortunately, you will know why. Johnny is an informant who gets paid $50 monthly in return for monitoring 3,000 people from her area and recording anything she sees about them. But China calls this type of work information gathering. But I prefer to call it informant or even a snitch, because I want you to imagine with me that there is a stranger allowed to intrude into your personal life and gather information about you directly. In my opinion, this is annoying. And when I say annoying, I mean that this thing is really very bad. And I know people shared their opinions regarding the topic, and they were not happy with this thing at all. For example, in this comment from user 911. Imagine snitching on everyone for $50 immigrant. Not being able to take out a loan, send your children to school, or buy anything you want just because your neighbor snitched you out for $50. And another comment from user 2011. All jokes aside, this is actually pretty scary. It's strange to think that there are people living in such a situation at all. And this thing can happen to us. And in a comment, my friend, there's a story behind it. This comment is from user 17. The last story really made me very sad, because if someone thought in this way, it means that society is really destroyed. But wait, what is the story he means originally? Let me tell you. A citizen, his points dropped below 1,000 points. He was talking about some situations that happened to him. Just because he dropped below 1,000 points, his level must be under 950 points. And if you want to buy Plythe loans, you won't be able to. None of them will be possible. Yesterday I went to Zaboa City, and this was during the summer. The tickets were sold out, so I tried to buy first-class plane tickets, but they told me my credit is less than what allows me to buy them. They didn't even allow me to buy train tickets to return to my home. So I returned by bus. By train it would have taken about 4 hours, but by bus it took me more than 10 hours. On the way I donated my blood, asked the employee. I don't know these things. Aren't they taking my money? And I worked voluntary jobs just to increase my points. But through this system, we can control those who can, and control themselves. He was prevented from buying flight tickets. He was prevented from buying train tickets. So he was forced to take a bus for transportation. And this thing takes more than 10 hours on the road. He started donating his blood. He started donating his money to the government, which says
it will go to charity organizations.
To raise his points a little bit. And after a very long suffering, he managed to get his points back above 1,000 points. And his statement was, finally, I managed to be a normal human being again. And believe me, if you think this is the worst thing that can happen, then we are still just at the beginning. In this chapter, I will use the word propaganda a lot. And this word means spreading talk, or news, or information about a specific thing from only one point of view. And this is used to cover up the faults of something, or of a specific party, by showing only some of the good things about it, and hiding all the bad things about it. Meaning, in short, it is a way to manipulate people by spreading false news. And now let me continue. Because what's certain is that media in general is bad. Media in general is nothing more than institutions for spreading propaganda to poison minds. But the idea is, did you expect that media could reach a stage where it produces a copy of you? Yes, exactly as you heard, produces a copy of you. To make it say things in the government's interest, so that the copy spreads propaganda in the best way possible. You might think my words are just another theory from conspiracy theories. But unfortunately, this has already happened, and it will happen in the future too. One of the examples this happened to is Matthew. Matthew is a human rights activist. Matthew lived in China for 10 years in the city of Beijing before he left it due to the policies and suppression. So what Matthew did is he started exposing the Chinese government and the systems that it follows. But the strange and terrifying thing is that Matthew one day was shocked that there is an identical copy of him doing an interview on a Chinese channel and spreading propaganda in favor of the Chinese government.
What the is going on?
Yes, my friend, this issue is 100% real. China copied a human rights activist so that he spreads their agendas. And of course, when I say copied, in this matter it would be in two ways, because what's certain is that God is the only one who can create people. So the two ways are either by them getting a person who looks like Matthew and doing plastic surgeries on him so that he becomes exactly like Matthew, or by using the second method, which I will refrain from talking about for reasons on my mind. So Matthew himself, since he spent 10 years in China, or rather, he completed the story that didn't reach us about an event that happened in China. In November of the year 2022, there were demonstrations all over China. The demonstrations were not violent at all, nor was there anything illegal in them. All that happened is that a large number of students in China went out onto the street holding blank papers. And this was because there wasn't something they wanted specifically. They just wanted some freedoms, which are considered very natural rights for any human. Of course, outwardly, what reached the media is that the protesters were protected by the police, and afterwards their demands were met and everything. But is this really what happened? Is it true that if someone opposes the government, he will get away without being punished even if he is right? Because as Voltaire, Napoleon's foreign minister, said, it is dangerous to be right when the government is wrong. And the idea, my friend, is that China started promoting internally that the people who went out to the sit-ins went out because they were incited and recruited by foreign countries hostile to China. Because according to their statements, it's impossible for any Chinese to think normally to protest against the state, because certainly China has given them all their rights. So why would anyone think to go out against the state? So until now, this is the story that reached us from the Chinese government. But as I said, given that Matthew has many acquaintances in China because he spent a large part of his life there, he decided to communicate with his acquaintances in China, so that they in turn communicate with other people, so that they communicate directly with literally any person who went out in any of these demonstrations. Because there were tens of thousands of people who went out in these demonstrations around China. And according to Matthew, he expected that a few of them would reply to him, or that any news would reach them about anyone who protested. But the shocker about this matter is that from among tens of thousands of people, there isn't even one single person from whom any news arrived, nor replied to any message. Tens of thousands of people disappeared as if they literally never existed. Practically, all that was received is one video from one girl who went out in the demonstration. She had an agreement with her friend that if she disappeared, this girl's friend would publish the video on the internet.
大家好，我是芷欣。现在我委托一些朋友，在我被失踪后，把这段视频公之于众。也就是说，当大家看到这段视频时，我已经被警察带走了，就像我的其他几位朋友一样。
The girl disappeared, she and all her friends before her, just because they held blank papers in the streets to try to get their most basic rights. It is the Chinese law for suppressing riots and causing trouble, and it is the same law the Chinese government uses to suppress any protests, or even to suppress people's emotions and feelings. Because of the year 2021, the Chinese government completely stopped issuing youth unemployment reports, and this is because unemployment reached its highest levels. And of course, the government's solution was to forbid talking about the topic at all, and it's certain that if you try to talk about this topic with your friends or with people, picking quarrels and provoking trouble is the law they will use to suppress you. And when I say suppress you, I mean that the police will show up at your house, and most likely, you will disappear. And when the youth got tired of this situation, they said, if the government has no solutions for us, then fine, we won't do anything. And the thing you probably expected with me, my friends, anyone who talks about this topic too, but what's certain is that we can deny the virtues of the Chinese government, because in the year 2021, in the city of Zhengzhou, the government started boasting about its new idea, which is the sponge cities. And this meant that the city would impossibly have a flood again. The amazing thing about it is that after a period there was a flood, and among the incidents caused by this flood was the filling of the underground tunnel designated for cars with water. The government officially announced that only 4 people died inside the tunnel, but the question we must think about is, how a tunnel 4 kilometers long, full of cars literally from beginning to end? And don't get me wrong, catching criminals is a good thing. But a criminal in China could be an ordinary person who objected to something the government did wrong. Died in the accident, and from the number of flowers they placed, and from the number of cars that sank, it was certain that, at the very least possible estimates, 5,000 people died just in the tunnel, away from those who died in the flood entirely. But once again, the government didn't like the situation, so the government started getting rid of the flowers that people were placing, and when the numbers of flowers became very large, barriers were put up so people couldn't see or photograph the flowers to estimate how many people died in the tunnel. But what's certain is that the news started to leak and spread as well, and the Chinese government had a solution for dealing with this problem once again. But this time, we will discover something strange that confirms suspicions I had before. Surely you still remember the demonstrations where the youth went out and they were holding blank papers. And you still remember the flood that happened and left thousands dead, or anything else I mentioned in the segment. And of course, as I told you a little while ago, these things started leaking outside China. And the Chinese media internally is promoting talk that is all lies. And the Chinese don't know what is happening inside China originally. And as just a side piece of information, in China, Twitter is banned, and YouTube, TikTok, and many others. China has its own special communication apps, and all of them are subject to government monitoring. And now let me continue for you. Some Chinese started to use VPN so they can access apps for communication. And this, of course, is illegal in China. And another thing that is illegal in China, which is pornography and prostitution. And remember this well, because when I search for events happening in China or anything political related to China on Twitter, and on the condition that I'm searching in Chinese language, any tweet that appears to me will have under it prostitution ads from Chinese accounts. And stranger than that is that they are verified accounts too. Let me even clarify the picture for you. This means that any Chinese, even if he opens a VPN and tries to search for the things that are happening, he will face one of 2 scenarios. First scenario is that because originally, by his entering Twitter, he is doing something illegal, he could be jailed for it for long years. And besides that, under any post he enters, he finds large numbers of pornography and prostitution ads, which is also something completely illegal. So he decides to get out of Twitter and forget the whole topic. Or the second scenario, which is that he enters Twitter and sees the prostitution ads and enters one of their accounts. When he enters an account, he will find it verified and has thousands of followers, and he will notice that he can communicate with the prostitute account owner via Telegram. And when he communicates with her, she will lure him and film him videos in positions that are immoral. And of course, you understood it why this is happening. Without me going deeper than this, is for money. And what will happen after that is that she will blackmail him with the videos so that he keeps paying a lot. And this has already happened to many people. And of course, there was a person who was blackmailed with his pictures until he paid $27,000. Of course, these accounts, as I said, they're all verified and active in systematic ways to target posts that concern anything political happening in China. So it's clear that they are accounts organized by the government itself. But the strange thing is, why Elon Musk and Twitter are allowing this? Elon Musk, the person who posts memes on Twitter every day and appears always like he doesn't care about anyone's opinion in the world and does what he wants. He could end this with just one request from the technical department. And the issue is bigger than it being not noticed. So here, once again, we must confirm that there is something illogical happening.